For months she cared for him, until she discovered he was a billionaire's son, but Sarah Johnson was counting the coins in her palm when she felt a tug on the hem of her simple dress. Her own financial struggles already kept her awake every night, calculating whether the money from cleaning would be enough to pay the rent for the small house in the Wicker Park neighborhood in Chicago. It was then that she looked down and saw the blonde, blue-eyed boy, who couldn't have been more than 5 years old. He was dirty, with torn clothes and messy hair, holding a piece of hard bread in his small hands. "Auntie, do you have a little water?" he asked in a weak voice. Sarah felt her heart tighten. Even with her own needs, she couldn't bear to see a child in need. "Of course, my dear. Come here with me." She took him to Miss Dorothy's stall, where she bought a small bottle of water with the last coins she had set aside for a snack. "What's your name?" asked Sarah, watching as the boy drank desperately. "Ethan, Ethan," he replied, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "And your mother, your father, where are they?" The boy lowered his head and began to cry softly. "I don't know. I don't remember." Sarah looked around the neighborhood farmers market. It was Thursday morning. The crowd was normal, but no one seemed to be looking for a lost child. No desperate mother's screams, no father running between the stalls. "How long have you been here alone?" Ethan shrugged, which made Sarah realize he probably didn't know how to count the days properly. He was too young. "Did you sleep on the street?" The boy nodded yes, and Sarah felt a pain in her chest. Even with her problems, even knowing she could barely support herself, she couldn't abandon a child. "Come with me. Let's go home. We'll find your family later." She took the boy's small, warm hand, and they left the market together. Sarah lived in a simple 2-bedroom house on a narrow alley. The Wicker Park neighborhood was known for housing hard-working people who struggled every day to survive. When they got home, Sarah prepared a warm bath for Ethan while he looked at everything with curiosity. The house was small but always clean and tidy, a reflection of the work she did in other people's homes. "Why are you helping me?" asked Ethan while she combed his wet hair. "Because every child deserves to be cared for, my dear." During the first few weeks, Sarah tried to find out where Ethan had come from. She asked the neighbors, went to the nearest police station, visited hospitals. No one had reported a missing child matching that description. The boy spoke strangely for someone his age. He used words that Sarah didn't hear in her daily life, as if he had learned to speak in a very different environment from hers. But when she asked about his previous life, Ethan became confused and distressed. "I remember a very big room," he would sometimes say, "and a woman who yelled a lot." Sarah didn't press him. The child had clearly been through some trauma, and she didn't want to hurt him further. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. 2 months passed. Ethan adapted to Sarah's simple routine. They woke up early. She would take him to the neighbor Miss Gloria's house while she went out to work. When she returned in the late afternoon, she always found the boy eager for her arrival. "Mom, Sarah, you're back," he would say, running into her arms. The word "mom" had appeared naturally. Sarah tried to correct him at first, explaining that she was just Aunt Sarah, but Ethan insisted. And gradually, she herself began to get used to that title she had never had before. Her already small savings had shrunk dramatically. Sarah needed to buy clothes for Ethan, food for 2 people, and still kept up her search for his family. Many times she thought about contacting Child Protective Services, but something in her heart stopped her. What if Ethan's family wasn't good? What if he ended up in some shelter? "Mommy Sarah, why do you get sad sometimes?" Mies asked Ethan one afternoon, while she tried to stretch the month's money. "It's nothing, my son, just tiredness. When I grow up, I'll work and help you," he said, climbing onto her lap. Sarah felt her eyes fill with tears. That child had brought a purpose to her life that she didn't even know was missing. It was on a Friday afternoon that everything changed. Sarah had taken Ethan to the neighborhood supermarket to buy some basic groceries. While getting rice from the shelves, she saw Ethan standing in front of the bulletin board near the checkout. "Mommy Sarah, this boy looks like me," he said, pointing to a poster. Sarah approached and felt her legs go weak. It was a missing child poster. The photo showed Ethan, but in expensive clothes and with a forced smile. The full name was written in large letters, Ethan Michael Richardson Anderson. Missing for 3 months, the poster said. $500,000 reward for information leading to the child's recovery. Sarah read the rest of the information with her heart racing. Ethan was the son of Richard Richardson Anderson, described as a businessman and president of one of the largest corporate groups in the Midwest. The mother was Jennifer Stewart Richardson Anderson. $500,000 reward. Sarah could barely imagine so much money together. But her first reaction wasn't joy, it was fear. "It really is you, isn't it?" she asked, crouching down to Ethan's height. The boy stared at the photo and nodded slowly. "I remember these clothes," he said, touching the poster. "But I don't remember being happy when they took the picture." Sarah bought only the essentials, and they returned home in silence. Her mind wouldn't stop working. Why would a child from such a wealthy family have appeared alone at a neighborhood street fair? Why had nobody found him in 3 months of searching if they had so much money? And more importantly, why had Ethan said he remembered a woman who shouted a lot? That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Sarah stayed in the small living room looking at the poster. There was something wrong with this whole story. A wealthy family doesn't lose a child for 3 months without finding clues, unless the child was running away from something. The next morning, Sarah decided to investigate a little before contacting the family. She went downtown, where the big company offices were, and began asking discreet questions. "Do you know Richard Richardson?" she asked a cleaning lady at a commercial building during her coffee break. "I know of him," the woman answered. "He's one of the richest men in Illinois, but they say his personal life isn't good at all. The wife is always traveling, leaves the boy with employees." "What do you mean?" "My cousin worked at their house a few years back. Said the lady of the house only cared about parties and trips. The boy was always locked in his room, only played by himself. A real sadness." Sarah felt a tightness in her chest. "And the father? That one is buried in his business, spends more time at the office than at home. My cousin said sometimes she'd go days without seeing the boss at home." The information Sarah gathered during the morning painted a sad picture. Ethan came from a wealthy family, but an apparently neglectful one. Several people mentioned that his mother was known for her coldness and was more interested in her social life than in her son, but still, they were his parents. Sarah knew she couldn't keep the child forever, even though her heart was already completely attached to him. When she got home in the late afternoon, she found Ethan helping Miss Gloria sort beans on the porch. "Mother, Sarah." He ran to her, as he always did. Sarah hugged him tightly, knowing that this might be one of the last times she would hear that word directed at her. "Ethan, I need to talk to you about something important." They sat on the small living room sofa, and Sarah showed him the poster again. "Do you remember anything about your family, about your home?" Ethan stayed quiet for a long time, looking at the picture. "I remember Catherine," he finally said. "Who is Catherine?" "She took care of me, but she was mean. She locked me in the room when I made noise, and she said my father didn't like me." Sarah felt anger. How could someone treat a child that way? "And your mother?" "Mommy traveled a lot. Sometimes she got angry when I cried. She said I was a weak boy." Sarah's heart broke. Ethan had run away from a family that had everything financially, but didn't know how to give love. "Do you want to go back to them?" Ethan shook his head firmly. "No. I want to stay with you. You're my real mother now." Sarah stayed up all night. She knew she couldn't keep Ethan indefinitely, but she also couldn't imagine returning him to a family that had clearly neglected him. The next morning she made a decision. She would contact the family, but first she wanted to understand exactly what had happened. Ethan deserved to be protected. Sarah borrowed a neighbor's phone and called the number on the poster. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was a woman's, but it sounded impatient. "I'm calling about the missing boy, Ethan." There was a pause. "You found him? Where is he?" "First, I need to know some things. I'm Sarah Johnson, and Ethan has been with me for 3 months." 3 months? Why didn't you call before? Do you know the despair we've been through? Sarah found the tone strange. It didn't sound like a desperate mother. It sounded more annoyed. "He was very scared when I found him. He couldn't talk about his family. I need to be sure he'll be safe." "Safe how? We're his parents. You have no right to keep our child. The conversation was getting out of control. Sarah decided to be more direct. Your son tells me that an employee of yours mistreated him, and that you traveled a lot and left him alone. That's a lie. Ethan is a child. He makes up stories. 5-year-olds don't invent trauma, Mom. Where are you? We'll come get him right now. Sarah hesitated. Something was very wrong in that conversation. I'll bring Ethan to you tomorrow morning, but I'm coming along to make sure he'll be okay. You have no authority for that. We can call the police. Go ahead and call. 3 months taking care of an abandoned child gives me some right to worry about him. Sarah hung up the phone, trembling. The reaction from Ethan's mother had confirmed her worst suspicions. When she got home, she found Ethan drawing at the kitchen table. What are you doing, my love? Drawing our home, he said, showing a paper with 2 stick figures in a small house. It's you and me. Sarah controlled herself not to cry in front of him. Ethan, tomorrow we're going to visit your other family. But I'm coming with you, okay? The boy dropped his pencil and looked at her with wide eyes. I don't want to go, Mother Sarah. I know, my son, but they are your parents. I'll talk to them, see if things can be different now. What if they don't let you stay with me? Sarah cupped his small face in her hands. Whatever happens, you'll always be my little boy in my heart, and I'll fight to make sure you're happy and safe. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The next morning, Sarah put on her best outfit and dressed Ethan in clean, well-pressed clothes. They took 2 buses to reach the upscale neighborhood where the Richardson-Anderson family mansion was located. Sarah had never been in such a luxurious area. The houses were huge, with extensive gardens and tall gates. When they arrived at the correct address, she had to press an intercom to announce her arrival. I'm Sarah Johnson. I brought Ethan. The gate opened automatically, revealing an immense property. The main house was a modern 2-story building with at least 10 windows in front. There were imported cars parked in the garage. Ethan held Sarah's hand tightly as they walked up the driveway. It's okay, my love, I'm here. The house door opened before they reached it. A tall man in a suit came walking quickly toward them. Sarah recognized Richard Richardson from photos she had seen in the newspapers. Ethan! He shouted, opening his arms. But Ethan hid behind Sarah, holding onto her skirt. Richard stopped a few meters away, clearly surprised by his son's reaction. Son, it's Daddy. Don't you recognize me? Ethan peeked from behind Sarah but didn't move. He's a little nervous, explained Sarah. He's been through a lot of difficult things. Richard looked at Sarah for the first time, really. His eyes showed surprise at seeing a black woman, simple but with a dignified posture. You're Sarah Johnson. I want to thank you for taking care of my son. I don't know how to repay you. At that moment, a blonde woman appeared in the house doorway. She was elegant, but her face showed irritation instead of relief. Ethan, come here immediately, said Jennifer with a firm voice. The boy shrank even further behind Sarah. Jennifer, take it easy, requested Richard. He's scared. Scared of what? He's our son. Sarah crouched down to Ethan's height. Do you want to say hi to your dad? Ethan waved timidly at Richard but kept holding Sarah's hand. And Mommy? Asked Jennifer, approaching. When she got close, Ethan started crying and threw himself into Sarah's arms. I don't want to. I don't want to, he screamed. Ethan, stop that right now. Jennifer raised her voice, which made the boy cry even louder. Jennifer, please, Richard tried to calm his wife. Sarah felt anger rising in her chest. This way you'll only scare him more. He spent 3 months running away from you. Do you think shouting will solve it? How dare you lecture us about our own son? Jennifer attacked. You're a complete stranger. A stranger who took care of him when you didn't even know where he was. Richard stepped between the 2 women. Let's all go inside and talk calmly. Ethan needs to feel safe. They entered the mansion, which was even more impressive inside. Sarah had never seen so much luxury together. Expensive furniture, paintings, a marble staircase, but everything seemed cold, lifeless. They sat in the main living room and Sarah kept Ethan on her lap. "Tell us what happened these 3 months," requested Richard, in a softer voice. Sarah recounted how she had found Ethan at the market, how he didn't remember anything about his family, and how she had cared for him since then. "You didn't conduct a wide search," observed Sarah. "If you had looked in the slums and working-class neighborhoods, you would have found me." Richard and Jennifer exchanged looks. "We focused on the areas where we thought he might have been taken," explained Richard. "You thought someone had kidnapped him." "It was the most logical explanation," said Jennifer. "Why would a child leave home voluntarily?" Sarah looked at Ethan, who was quiet in her lap. "Ethan, can you tell your father and mother why you left home?" Ethan was silent for a long time. Then, in a very low voice, he began to speak. "Catherine was mean to me. She put me in the dark room when I made noise. And she said you didn't like me because I was a crybaby." Richard turned pale. "Catherine? Our former housekeeper? She doesn't work here anymore?" asked Sarah. "No, we fired her 2 months ago when we found out she was stealing." "Ethan, what else do you remember?" Sarah encouraged. "I remember one day Mommy was shouting a lot on the phone. She said she was tired of having a child messing up her life, and that she was going to travel and be away for a long time." Jennifer turned red. "I never said that." "Yes, you did," Ethan insisted. "And when you left, Catherine said you weren't coming back ever again, that I was a burden." "My God," murmured Richard, running his hands over his face. Sarah was beginning to understand the whole situation. "Ethan ran away because he believed you didn't want him. A 5-year-old child alone on the street because he felt rejected by his own family." The silence in the room was heavy. Richard looked at his son with an expression of horror, realizing the magnitude of what had happened. "Ethan," he said, kneeling in front of Sarah, "Daddy is so sorry. Really, really sorry. We never wanted you to feel that way." "It's true, son." Jennifer also approached, but her voice still sounded mechanical. "Mommy didn't mean those things." Ethan looked at his parents but continued clinging to Sarah. "You won't give me back to Catherine again?" "Never again," Richard assured. "Catherine doesn't work here anymore." "And you won't travel and leave me alone?" Richard and Jennifer exchanged another uncomfortable look. "Son, sometimes Mommy and Daddy need to work and travel. Then I want to stay with Mommy Sarah," said Ethan with determination. "Ethan, Sarah is not your mother," said Jennifer with impatience. "We are your family. She took care of me. She gives me food, gives me baths, plays with me." "We can do that too," Richard tried. "But you never did before," Ethan replied with the cruel honesty of children. Sarah felt a deep pain in her chest. That child had learned at 5 years old that he couldn't count on the people who were supposed to protect him the most. "I think Ethan needs some time to adjust," said Sarah diplomatically. "Maybe you can start slowly. Visits, outings." "He is our son." Jennifer became agitated. "We're not going to ask for permission to be with him." "And I understand that." Sarah remained calm. "But he is also a traumatized child who needs to feel safe." Richard reflected for a moment. "Sarah is right. We need to regain our son's trust." "I can't believe you're agreeing with a stranger about how to handle Ethan. This stranger took better care of our son in 3 months than we did in 5 years. Richard exploded. The shout frightened Ethan, who started crying again. Sarah stood up. "I think it's better we leave for today. Ethan is already too stressed." "No!" Richard became desperate. "Please don't take him away again." "I'm not taking him away, but he needs to go back to where he feels safe now. You can visit us whenever you want." "Visit?" Jennifer couldn't believe it. "We're going to call the police." "Call them," Sarah replied calmly. "Explain to them how a 5-year-old child was missing for 3 months because he was running away from home. Explain how you let an employee mistreat your son. I'm sure they will understand the situation perfectly." Richard held his wife's arm. "Jennifer, that's enough. Sarah is right. They left the mansion with Ethan still clinging to Sarah. On the way back, the boy was quiet, processing the reunion with his parents." "Mom, Sarah, will I have to go back there?" "I don't know, my love, but I'll do everything to make sure you're happy." Can you come live there with me?" Sarah smiled sadly. "I don't know if they'd like that." "Then I'll be sad again." Sarah stopped walking and knelt in front of Ethan. "Listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you. No matter where you live, no matter what happens, you'll always be special to me. And I'll always be here if you need me." "Promise?" "I promise." When they got home, Sarah was emotionally exhausted. She prepared dinner as she always did, but her mind couldn't stop thinking about what the future would hold. She knew she had no legal rights over Ethan. She was just the woman who had found him and taken care of him. But she also knew that child needed more care and attention than his parents seemed willing to give. During the night, while Ethan slept, Sarah thought about all the options. She could try to convince Richard and Jennifer to let her continue caring for the boy. She could contact Child Protective Services and report the situation, or she could simply accept that her part in Ethan's life had come to an end. But when she looked at the boy sleeping peacefully in the small bed she had arranged for him, she knew she couldn't give up so easily. The next morning, Sarah was surprised by a visit. Richard was at her door, alone. "May I come in? I need to talk to you." Sarah invited him into the small living room. Richard looked around, noticing the simplicity but also the cleanliness and care with which everything was arranged. "Where's Ethan?" "Playing in the backyard with the neighbor's children." Richard nodded, seeming nervous. "Sarah, I need to be honest with you. Jennifer and our relationship hasn't been good for a long time. We married young, had Ethan early, and then we didn't know how to be parents." Sarah listened without interrupting. "I dedicated myself too much to business. I thought giving my family a comfortable life was enough. Jennifer became frustrated with motherhood and started traveling to escape the responsibilities. And Ethan was caught in the middle of all that." "Exactly. We hired nannies, housekeepers, but we never really cared to find out if he was happy." Richard stopped and looked out the window, where he could see Ethan laughing and playing with other children. "He never laughed like that at home." Sarah felt sorry for the man in front of her. It was clear he was suffering from the situation. "It's not too late to start over," she said. "That's what I want." But Jennifer, she doesn't want to change. She thinks if she goes back to acting like before, pretending nothing happened, everything will work out. And you? I want to be the father Ethan deserves. But I also know he's happy here with you in a way he never was with us." The two were silent for a moment. "What are you proposing?" asked Sarah. "I want you to come live with us, as, I don't know, Ethan's official governess. That way he can have you nearby, but also be with his family." Sarah was surprised by the proposal. "And your wife, would she agree to this? I'll convince her. And if she doesn't agree, maybe it's time we rethink our marriage too. Richard, you can't make such important decisions based on emotion." "It's not emotion, Sarah. It's responsibility. My son ran away from home because he felt unhappy. That's my fault and I need to fix it." At that moment, Ethan came running into the room. "Dad," he said, surprised but not scared like the day before. "Hi, son. I came to visit you and Sarah." Ethan approached slowly. "Are you going to take me away?" "Only if you want to come with me." "Can I stay here?" "You can, but would you like to spend some time with me too? We could go to the park or the mall." Ethan looked at Sarah, asking for approval. "You can go, my love. I'll be here when you get back." "Promise?" "I promise." Richard spent the afternoon with Ethan, and Sarah could see through the window how he was really trying to connect with his son. They played in the small backyard. Richard even got dirty sitting on the ground to play with toy cars with Ethan. When they came back inside, Richard seemed lighter. "Ethan told me you're teaching him to read." "I'm trying. He's very smart." At the private school he used to attend, they said he had trouble concentrating. He concentrates well when he feels safe. Richard understood the message. "Sarah, please consider my proposal. I know it's a lot to ask, but I need to think." "Of course. And I also need to talk better with Jennifer." After Richard left, Sarah kept thinking about the proposal. Living in the mansion would mean she could continue taking care of Ethan, but it would also mean entering a world completely different from hers. Would she be able to keep her identity in such a luxurious environment? Would the other employees accept her? And would Jennifer really allow another woman to have so much influence over her son? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. In the following days, Richard started visiting Sarah and Ethan regularly. He always arrived in the late afternoon after work and spent a few hours playing with his son. Sarah noticed that Ethan began to open up more with his father. He still preferred to stay close to her, but he no longer hid when Richard arrived. "Daddy, do you want to see my drawing?" Ethan asked one afternoon. "Of course, son." Ethan showed a drawing where there were 3 people, a black woman, a tall man, and a small child. "It's the 3 of us," explained Ethan. "You, me, and Mama Sarah." Richard looked at Sarah with an expression she couldn't decipher. "It's a very beautiful drawing, Ethan." After the boy went outside to play, Richard approached Sarah. "Jennifer isn't handling the situation well." "What do you mean?" "She's jealous. She says Ethan likes you more than her." "It's natural. I took care of him when he needed it, but that doesn't mean he can't learn to love his parents too." "Would you talk to her? Maybe if she understood better." Sarah hesitated. "I don't know if that would be a good idea." "Please, for Ethan." 2 days later, Jennifer showed up at Sarah's house. She was elegantly dressed, but her face showed irritation and desperation. "I need to talk to you about my son." Sarah invited her in, but Jennifer stood in the small living room, clearly uncomfortable with the simple surroundings. "I know you think you're helping, but you're disrupting our family." "What do you mean?" "Ethan doesn't want to come home because of you. You're brainwashing him." Sarah felt angry but controlled herself. "Jennifer, your son doesn't want to come back because he feels safe here. That's not my fault. You're a complete stranger. You have no right to give your opinion on how we raise our son. You weren't raising him. You abandoned him with staff." "That's not true, Mum, isn't it?" "Then explain to me how a 5-year-old spent 3 months on the streets without you knowing where he was." Jennifer was speechless for a moment. We made mistakes, but we're his family. And I never said otherwise. I just want him to be happy." "Then get out of his life." At that moment, Ethan ran into the living room and stopped when he saw his biological mother. "Mommy," he said softly. Jennifer knelt and held out her arms. "Come here, my son." Ethan looked at Sarah, then walked slowly toward Jennifer. She hugged him, and for a moment Sarah thought things might work out naturally. But then Jennifer started to speak. "Ethan, Mommy came to pick you up to go home. You'll have new toys, a big room, everything you want." "And what about Mother Sarah?" asked Ethan. "Sarah can't come with us, son. She's not part of our family." Ethan pulled away from the hug. "Then I'm not going." "Ethan, don't be stubborn." "I'm not stubborn. I just don't want to leave Mother Sarah alone." Jennifer looked at Sarah angrily. "See what you did? You turned my son against me." "I didn't turn anyone against you. Ethan knows who took care of him when he needed it." "You want money, is that it? How much do you want to get out of our lives?" Sarah felt as if she'd been slapped. "Get out of my house," she said quietly. "What?" "I told you to get out of my house, now." "You can't throw me out. You have my son. Your son is here because he ran away from your home, and now I understand why." Jennifer stormed out, slamming the door. Ethan started crying. "Mother Sarah, why was Mommy angry?" Sarah picked him up. "Sometimes adults get confused when they're worried, my love." "Did I make her sad because I said I didn't want to go?" "No, Ethan. You didn't do anything wrong." That night, Sarah could barely sleep. The conversation with Jennifer had shown that the situation was more complicated than she imagined. What if they actually called the police? What if they could prove she was keeping the family apart? The next morning, Richard appeared at the door, visibly upset. "Sarah, I need to talk to you urgently." "Ethan is having breakfast. Come outside." They sat on the front steps of the house. "Jennifer wants to take legal action against you." Sarah felt her stomach turn. "Alleging what?" "Kidnapping, manipulation of a minor, family interference." Richard, your son ran away from home. I just took care of him. I know. And that's what I'll tell any judge who'll listen. But Jennifer is desperate. She doesn't understand why Ethan doesn't accept her naturally. And you? Richard sighed. I understand perfectly. We failed as parents, Sarah. And now we're paying the price. They stayed silent for a moment, watching Ethan play in the small backyard. Are you still willing to take me to live in the mansion? More than ever. It's the only solution I see for everyone to be happy. And Jennifer? I'm giving her an ultimatum. Either she accepts you in the house, or I'll ask for separation and custody of Ethan. Sarah was shocked. Richard, you can't end your marriage over this. My marriage ended years ago, Sarah. We were just pretending it still worked. Ethan running away was just what we needed to admit the truth. Are you sure? Absolutely. And besides, I think you'd be a much better influence on my son than the toxic environment Jennifer and I created. Sarah looked at Ethan, who came running toward them. Mother Sarah, look what I found. He showed a small flower he had picked in the yard. It's for you, he said, handing the flower to Sarah. Richard watched the scene with a soft expression. He never gave me a flower, he murmured. It could still happen, Sarah comforted. Daddy, do you want a flower too? Asked Ethan. Richard smiled. I do, son. Ethan ran back to the yard and returned with another small flower. This one is for you. Richard held the tiny flower as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Thank you, Ethan. Now you both have matching flowers like a real family. Sarah and Richard looked at each other. Ethan's innocence was showing the way. Sarah, will you agree to come live with us? Sarah looked at Ethan, who was waiting for her answer with hopeful eyes. I accept, but with some conditions. What are they? First, I continue being the housekeeper. I don't want to be treated as charity. I agree. Second, I have complete authority over Ethan's education and care. If Jennifer or you disagree with anything, we discuss it privately, never in front of him. I agree. And third, if I notice that Ethan is becoming unhappy again, I leave and take him with me. Richard hesitated. Sarah, legally I can't agree to that. Then legally you'll have to sue me, but Ethan's happiness comes first for me, always. Richard extended his hand. I agree to your conditions. They shook hands, sealing an agreement that would change all their lives. When do you want us to move? How about this afternoon? That way Ethan can start adjusting slowly. Mom, Sarah, are we going to live in the big house? Asked Ethan, who had overheard part of the conversation. Yes, my love. And can I bring my toys? Sarah looked at the few simple toys she had managed to buy for Ethan. Of course you can. And will you sleep in the room near mine? I will. Ethan jumped for joy. Then I'm going to have a big family. Daddy, Mom, Sarah, and maybe even Mommy when she's not angry. The simplicity with which Ethan viewed the situation touched Sarah's heart. For him, the complexity of the adults' problems didn't matter. He just wanted to have people who loved him nearby. In the afternoon, Sarah packed her few belongings into a small suitcase. She didn't have much beyond simple clothes and a few books. Ethan, in turn, carefully packed his drawings, his 3 toy cars, and a teddy bear that Sarah had bought for him. Richard arrived with a larger car to take them. During the drive, Sarah felt a mix of nervousness and determination. She was about to enter a completely new world, but she would do it for Ethan. When they arrived at the mansion, Jennifer was waiting at the door. Her expression was cold, but she made no comment when she saw Sarah getting out of the car with luggage. Jennifer, Sarah is going to live with us starting today, announced Richard. I know. You explained your decision to me. Her tone made it clear that she wasn't happy, but she had accepted the situation. Ethan ran to his mother. Mommy, Mom Sarah is going to live here too. Now we can be a big family. Jennifer forced a smile. That's great, son. Richard showed Sarah the rooms that would be hers and Ethan's. They were adjacent on the 2nd floor of the mansion, far from the couple's master bedroom. If you need anything, just talk to Dorothy, our cook, or Anthony, who takes care of the house, explained Richard. Sarah's room was bigger than her entire house. It had a double bed, a huge wardrobe, and even a TV. Sarah had never slept in such a luxurious place. Ethan's room was even more impressive. It was 3 times larger than the room he had had at Sarah's house, with a car-shaped bed, shelves full of expensive toys, and a computer. "This is your real room, Ethan," said Sarah. Ethan looked around with wide eyes, but then ran to Sarah. "It's too big. Can I sleep in your room tonight?" Sarah looked at Richard, who nodded approvingly. "Of course, my love." On that first night in the mansion, Sarah barely slept. The mattress was too soft compared to her simple bed, and the sounds were different. Besides, her mind wouldn't stop working, thinking about all the challenges that lay ahead. Ethan, on the other hand, slept peacefully on the extra mattress that Richard had ordered to be placed in Sarah's room. The next morning, Sarah went down to the kitchen and found Dorothy, a woman in her 60s, preparing breakfast. "You must be Sarah," said Dorothy with a smile. "I'm Dorothy. I've worked here for 15 years. Nice to meet you. Mr. Richard told me your story. It's a beautiful thing that you took care of the boy Ethan." Sarah felt relieved to find kindness. "Have you known Ethan since he was little?" "Since he was born. Poor thing. He was always a sad child. I'm glad he now has someone who truly cares about him." "And Mrs. Jennifer, how is she handling the situation?" Dorothy lowered her voice. "Not very well. But between us, she never really cared much for the boy anyway. She always left everything to the nannies. And Mr. Richard, he's a good man, but he works too much. I think now he wants to change for his son's sake." Ethan appeared in the kitchen in his pajamas, still looking sleepy. "Good morning, Aunt Dorothy," he said cheerfully. "Good morning, my angel. Would you like a glass of milk?" "Yes, and can Mom Sarah have coffee here in the kitchen with me?" Dorothy looked at Sarah. "Of course, dear. You've always been welcome in my kitchen." Sarah realized that Dorothy was testing whether she would act superior for being Ethan's special caregiver. She sat at the kitchen table without ceremony. "This is perfect for us." From that moment on, Sarah and Dorothy became allies. The cook explained the household routine, mealtimes, and even gave some tips on how to deal with Jennifer. "Mrs. Jennifer likes things her way," Dorothy explained. "If you don't confront her directly, you'll get along fine." "And if I need to confront her because of Ethan?" "Then you talk to Mr. Richard first." During the first week in the mansion, Sarah observed the family dynamics. Richard was really making an effort to be more present. He came home earlier, played with Ethan, asked about his day. Jennifer, on the other hand, maintained a polite but cold distance. She greeted Ethan in the morning, asked about school, but there was no genuine warmth in their interactions. Ethan flourished in that environment. With Sarah nearby, making him feel safe, he managed to open up more to his father. He still avoided Jennifer, but he no longer ran away when she approached. "Mom Sarah, now I have 2 rooms, he said one afternoon, as they were organizing his toys in his room. "That's true. You're a lucky boy." "And you have a big room too." "Yes, I do." "Are you happy living here?" Sarah stopped what she was doing and looked at Ethan. "I'm happy when you're happy, my love." "I am happy. Daddy took me for ice cream yesterday, and Aunt Dorothy makes the best pasta in the world. And Mommy—" Ethan was quiet for a moment. "Mommy is still kind of weird with me, but Daddy said she needs time to learn to be more affectionate." Sarah was impressed by Ethan's maturity for a 5-year-old. Everything he had been through had made him grow up faster than he should have. It was in the second week that the first serious conflict happened. Sarah was helping Ethan with a puzzle in the living room when Jennifer came down the stairs getting ready to go out. "Ethan, come say goodbye to Mommy." Ethan went to her and gave her a quick kiss on the cheek. "Where are you going, Mommy?" "I'm having lunch with my friends. I'll be back tonight. Can I come along?" "No, son. It's not a place for children." Ethan returned to Sarah, visibly upset. "Why can't I go with Mommy?" he asked after Jennifer left. Sarah didn't know how to answer without criticizing Jennifer. "Sometimes adults need time just for themselves, Ethan. But you always take me along when you go somewhere. It's different, my love." "Why is it different?" Sarah sighed. Ethan was starting to ask questions that she couldn't answer without being honest about the family's problems. Your mommy is still learning to include you in her life, but your daddy is trying, did you notice? Ethan nodded. Daddy promised me that this weekend we're going to the zoo, just the two of us. How nice. Can you come too? I think your daddy wants to spend some time alone with you. And that's good, Ethan. That night, when Richard came home from work, Sarah told him about the incident with Jennifer. She went out for lunch and won't be back until tonight. That's what she said. Richard ran his hand through his hair, visibly irritated. Sarah, can I ask you a favor? Can you stay with Ethan tomorrow night? I need to have a serious talk with Jennifer. Of course. The next evening, Sarah put Ethan to bed and stayed in her room reading, but she could hear raised voices coming from the master bedroom. She couldn't make out the words, but it was clear that Richard and Jennifer were arguing. The argument lasted for over an hour. Afterwards, Sarah heard footsteps in the hallway and a soft knock on her door. Sarah? It was Richard's voice. She opened the door. Richard looked tired, his hair disheveled. Sorry to bother you. I just wanted to let you know that Jennifer is going away for a few weeks. She needs some time to think. Sarah didn't know what to say. And Ethan? I'll explain to him that Mommy had to take care of some important matters, but that she'll be back soon. He's going to be upset. Probably. But I think it's for the best. Jennifer needs to decide if she really wants to be a mother or not. Richard paused at the door. Sarah, thank you for everything you're doing. I know it's not easy. Ethan is worth any sacrifice. For me, too. The next morning, Jennifer had left early, leaving only a note saying she would be back in a few weeks. Ethan was confused, but Sarah and Richard managed to explain the situation in a way that he didn't feel abandoned again. Did she leave because of me? Asked Ethan. No, son. Richard knelt in front of him. Mommy just needs to sort out some important things. It has nothing to do with you. And what if she doesn't come back? She will. And in the meantime, you have Daddy and Sarah to take care of you. Ethan seemed to accept the explanation, but Sarah noticed that he became more clingy with her in the following days, as if he was afraid she would leave too. With Jennifer gone, the atmosphere in the mansion became lighter. Richard started coming home earlier, had dinner with Ethan almost every day, and even took Sarah out with them on some weekends. You look like a real family, commented Dorothy one day, watching Richard, Sarah, and Ethan playing in the garden. Sarah felt a pang in her heart. It was true that she was starting to feel like part of the family, but she knew her position was precarious. If Jennifer decided to come back and demand that she leave, Richard might not be able to stop it. It was on a Saturday afternoon, almost a month after Jennifer left, that Sarah received an unexpected call. Hello, Sarah. It's Jennifer. Sarah got nervous. Hi, Jennifer. I need to talk to you. Can I come over tonight? Of course. And Sarah, don't tell Richard I called. I want to talk to you first. Jennifer arrived at 8 in the evening when Ethan was already asleep. Sarah received her in the main living room of the mansion. Where's Richard? Working in his office. He said he didn't want to be disturbed. Jennifer sat on the sofa, and Sarah noticed she looked different. Thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, less put together than usual. Sarah, I need to be honest with you. I'm listening. These days away made me think a lot. About my life, about my marriage, about Ethan. Sarah waited. I never wanted to be a mother, Jennifer said finally. Ethan was an accident. Richard and I were young, and when I found out I was pregnant, I married him because it was what was expected. Jennifer, let me finish. During these 5 years, I tried to pretend I was a good mother, but I always felt trapped, suffocated. That's why I traveled so much. That's why I left Ethan with nannies. Sarah didn't know how to respond. And then he ran away, you showed up, and I realized my son preferred a complete stranger over his own mother. He doesn't prefer you. He just feels safe with me because you genuinely care about him, and I don't. The silence hung heavy in the room. I came here to ask you for something, continued Jennifer. I want you to keep Ethan. What do you mean? I want to give up my custody. Let Richard keep him and you take care of him as if you were his mother. Sarah was shocked. Jennifer, you can't make this decision on a whim. It's not on a whim, it's something I've been thinking about for years. Ethan deserves to have a mother who loves him, and that person is you, not me. And Richard, have you talked to him about this? I will. But I wanted to know if you'd agree. Sarah thought of Ethan sleeping upstairs, the happiness he had shown in recent weeks, the love she felt for that child. I would do anything for Ethan, but I don't want him to grow up thinking his biological mother abandoned him. He won't think that. I'll explain that I'm leaving because I want him to be happy, and that you can give him what I can't. Where are you going? I have a job offer in New York. It's far away. It'll give me the fresh start I need. Sarah was silent for a few minutes. Are you absolutely sure about this? I am. And I know Ethan will be happier this way. What if you change your mind in a few years? I won't, but if I do, we'll talk. But if I... The important thing now is that Ethan has a happy childhood. At that moment, Richard appeared in the room. Jennifer, I didn't know you had come back. Hi, Richard. I was talking with Sarah about an important decision. Richard joined them, and Jennifer explained her proposal. Richard was initially shocked, then thoughtful. Are you sure about this, Jennifer? Absolutely. And you? Would you agree to share custody of Ethan with Sarah? Richard looked at Sarah. I already have been for weeks. Sarah is Ethan's mother in every way that matters. Then it's decided, said Jennifer. I'll look for a lawyer to do the legal paperwork. And Ethan? How are we going to explain it to him? With the truth, said Sarah. That you decided he would be happier this way, and that it doesn't mean you don't care about him. Exactly, agreed Jennifer. And I want to visit him from time to time if you allow it. Of course, said Richard. Jennifer stood up. Well, then I'll pack my bags. I'm leaving for New York tomorrow. Tomorrow? Richard was surprised. The sooner the better for all of us. After Jennifer left, Richard and Sarah were alone in the room. How do you feel about all this? Asked Richard. Scared. Sarah was honest. It's a lot of responsibility. You won't be alone. We're a family now, Sarah. Sarah looked at Richard and noticed something different in the way he was looking at her. Richard, Sarah, can I tell you something? Of course. These months living with you have made me realize the kind of person I want by my side, and it's not just because of Ethan. Sarah felt her heart race. What are you saying? I'm saying that I've fallen in love with you, with your strength, your generosity, your way of loving Ethan unconditionally. Richard, You don't have to answer now. I know it's a lot all at once, but I wanted you to know my feelings. Sarah was speechless. She had noticed a growing closeness between them, but she hadn't imagined Richard could have romantic feelings for her. I need to think, she said finally. Of course. And regardless of your answer, you'll always have a place here, for you and for Ethan. The next morning, Jennifer said goodbye to Ethan in a surprisingly affectionate way. My son, Mommy has to travel for a long time. Why, Mommy? Because I got a very important job far away from here. And I can't go with you? No, my love, but you'll stay with Daddy and Sarah, who love you very much. Will Sarah keep being my mom? Jennifer looked at Sarah, who was watching the conversation. If you want, she can be your mother in your heart. I do, Ethan answered without hesitation. Then it's decided. Jennifer hugged Ethan for the last time as his legal mother. I'll always remember you, my son, and even far away, I'll be cheering for you to be very happy. Will you come back someday, Mommy? Maybe. But you don't need to wait for me. You have a beautiful family here. After Jennifer left, Ethan went to play in the garden as if nothing extraordinary had happened. To him, Sarah had already been his mother for a long time. Jennifer's departure just made official something that already existed in his heart. Richard and Sarah spent the following weeks taking care of the legal procedures. With Jennifer cooperating, the custody transfer process was relatively quick. Sarah officially became Ethan's legal guardian, with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed. How does it feel to be a mother officially? Asked Richard one afternoon while they watched Ethan playing in the pool. Like I'm finally in the right place, Sarah replied, and about what we talked about the other day. Sarah had thought a lot about Richard's feelings. She had also noticed that her own admiration for him had grown over time. "Richard, I have feelings for you too, but I need to be sure it's not just gratitude or convenience because of Ethan. How can we be sure? By giving it time, continuing as we are but paying attention to our feelings. Can I take you out to dinner sometime? Just the two of us?" Sarah smiled. "You can, but as friends for now." As friends, Richard agreed. 6 months passed. Ethan was completely adapted to the new family setup. At school, he proudly spoke of his mom, Sarah, and his dad, Richard. Sarah and Richard started dating discreetly, without pressuring Ethan with changes that were too fast. They went out to dinner once a week, talked for long hours after Ethan fell asleep, and discovered they had much more in common than they imagined. "Mom, Sarah," Ethan said one night as she was putting him to bed, "are you and Dad going to get married?" "Why are you asking that?" "Because you keep looking at each other like my friends' parents when they're in love." Sarah laughed at Ethan's perceptiveness. "If we got married, how would you feel?" "Happy. Then we'd be a real family for real." "Ethan, we're already a real family, with or without marriage." "I know, but it would be cool if you got married." "Can I be the ring bearer?" "If that day ever comes, you'll definitely be the ring bearer." 2 years passed. Ethan grew up, made friends at school, developed his personality and talents. Richard became a present and caring father, making up for the lost years. Sarah flourished in her role as a mother, discovering strengths and abilities she didn't know she had. And yes, Sarah and Richard got married in a simple ceremony at their own mansion, with Ethan as the ring bearer, beaming with happiness. "Now we're officially a family," Ethan said during the party, hugging Sarah and Richard. "We always have been, my love," Sarah replied. "The paper just confirmed what was already in our hearts." Jennifer visited a few times over the years. She kept in touch with Ethan by phone and letters, but she was more like a distant aunt than a mother. Ethan welcomed her affectionately, but without the desperate need that children feel for their parents. His emotional security was guaranteed with Sarah and Richard. "You made the right choice," Jennifer told Sarah during one of her visits. "Ethan is a happy and confident child. I could never have given him that." "Every child deserves to be loved unconditionally," replied Sarah. "That's true, and you knew how to love when I couldn't." Years later, when Ethan was already a well-adjusted and happy teenager, Sarah looked back and marveled at the journey they had taken. It all started with a lost child at a fair, and it had transformed into a true family, built not by blood, but by love, dedication, and conscious choices to put a child's well-being above anything else. "Mom, can I ask you something?" said Ethan one afternoon, already 15 years old. "Always, my son. Do you regret anything? Finding me at that fair, changing your whole life?" Sarah looked at the teenager in front of her. Tall, confident, kind, intelligent. A young man who knew he was loved and had a bright future ahead. "Never," she answered. "Finding you was the best thing that ever happened to me." "For me, too. I don't know who I would be if I hadn't run away that day and found you." "You would still be a good person, Ethan. That's in your essence." "But maybe I'd be a sad person, and now I'm happy." Sarah hugged her son of the heart. "And you will continue to be, because now you know it's possible to build a family with love, respect, and dedication." "That's what I'll do when I grow up. I'll raise my children the way you raised me, and they will be very happy children." During Ethan's high school graduation, Sarah remembered that small, frightened child she had found at the fair years ago. Now he was preparing to enter university, had plans for the future, and most importantly was certain that he was loved. "I want to thank the most important people in my life," said Ethan during his speech as class valedictorian. "My father Richard, who taught me that it's never too late to start over, and my mother Sarah, who taught me that family is whoever loves you unconditionally." Sarah cried with emotion throughout the speech. Beside her, Richard held her hand. "We did it," he murmured. "We did it," she agreed. And they really had succeeded. They had taken an apparently impossible situation and turned it into a story of love, dedication, and true family. Ethan is now an adult, married, has his own children who call Sarah Grandma and Richard Grandpa. Jennifer is the Aunt Jennifer, who visits at Christmas and sends birthday presents. But for Ethan, Sarah will always simply be Mom, the woman who found him lost at a fair and chose to love him as her son, forever changing all their lives. And Sarah, whenever she tells this story, ends by saying, "Sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the family we're born with. What matters is choosing with the heart." End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. If you have any similar experience to share with us, leave it here in the comments with sincere words. Do you think Sarah made the right decision by taking Ethan in? We love reading your opinion. Thank you very much for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories.